Well, hello, John Browning. Welcome to your podcast, sir. How are you today?
I am doing fantastic. The sun is shining, and everything seems to be going okay.
That's great. I tell you, I'm in Little Rock, Arkansas. We've got springtime weather. It is fabulous. I just want to bottle it up and keep it.
Yeah, you know what? I just love the as it starts to get warm after a cold winter, and even some cold days towards the end of spring as well.
Yes.
So, nice. I broke out the golf shirt today, and I'm ready to go.
That's right. That's good. Hey, speaking of ready to go, I've got a question for you, kind of off topic, but I'll get there. Have you ever done any archery?
Yeah, we used to do that all the time. Yeah.
Did you? Okay. All right. I've done a little bit in my day, not a ton, but I was thinking about, in archery, you're shooting for a target, right? And the bullseye, and then you've got the different rings, and you're trying to hit that target. And most of the time I missed. But at least you got something to aim at, right? And you know whether or not you hit the target or not.
Yes.
That's what I want to talk about today. Not archery, but in terms of finances and what you do for people, helping them build a portfolio so that they can live the life they want. I want to talk about hitting or missing the target, and specifically around what you're going to explain to us are target date mutual funds and why they may or may not be on target for you, right?
So that's exactly right. Yep.
Well, do me a favor and explain them to me. And I'm sure as you do that, you'll explain it to some other listeners, because that was a relatively new phrase for me, a new concept. So help me understand what a target date mutual fund is first, and then how do you know whether or not it's right?
Gotcha. And you know what? Target date mutual funds became popular probably 15 years ago, something like that. Maybe even 20. Things, as I get older, things tend to shorten up on that front. But they became very popular, and they were pretty effective. And the idea behind them is that, they were easy. Everybody likes easy, right?
Absolutely.
And as a matter of fact, in your 401k, often, if you didn't make a selection in terms of what you wanted to invest in, they would do that for you, and they would generally select target date mutual funds. And what that means is they'll take the target date of your retirement, and they design a mutual fund for, say, 2021 or 2033 or whatever it is when you're likely to retire. And what they do is they invest in the equity market for a portion of that fund, and then the fixed income market or the bond market for the rest of that fund. And as it gets closer to that target date, the ratio of fixed income moves higher, and the equity portion moves lower, because in general, the equity market is more volatile than the fixed income market. And as you get closer to retirement, generally speaking, you're looking to reduce your risk and maybe increase your income as you get closer to that date. So that's what they were made for.
Okay. That makes sense. So they automatically adjust to a predefined target date, which typically would be your retirement date. And that's an arbitrary number anyway, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, a lot of people that I know of plan to retire earlier or later, and just doesn't work out. Something happens, they decide they want to retire earlier, or they said, I kind of like this job, I'm going to keep going. So
right. Okay. So so many people, if I heard you right, inside their 401k, if they didn't specify something, this was kind of the default setting for many 401k programs is a target date mutual fund.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yep. So now that we know kind of what that is, how do we know if I'm on target? How do I know if it's right for me? I guess is the question I'm trying to ask, right?
Yeah, and it's a great question, one that everybody, I think, should be asking. And the problem today, and it's something that we've talked about before on this podcast, is that fixed income or the bond market is no longer performing in the way in which it once did when these funds were first introduced. And it kind of goes to the goes to the idea that you do want to make things as easy as possible, as simple as possible, but not simpler.
Okay.
And when you utilize an automatic formula to do anything, you have to keep in mind that at some point, because things are changing around that model and that formula, that it may not continue to work as planned. And that's really what's happening, I believe, with these target date mutual funds, is that many people don't realize that fixed income is no longer providing that downside protection that it once did, because interest rates are much lower. And by mathematical design, a bond has a real trouble going to a negative interest rate. And then when it does go to a negative interest rate, and a bond goes to a negative interest rate when the price rises to a point where the income doesn't make up the difference, right? So
Right. Yeah.
once that once that happens, it's no longer providing a fixed income. And as we've seen over the past year or so, especially with the treasury market and short-term rates, we found that it's not, fixed income is not even keeping pace with expected inflation. So in terms of real return, you're actually in a state of negative real returns when you consider inflation and you're utilizing fixed income. And so when there's not room for fixed income to rise in price, then how is it going to provide downside protection to your overall portfolio if equities decline in price?
Okay.
So, that's a rhetorical question, but the answer is it's really not.
Right.
And not only that, but it's also not providing much fixed income anymore. So it's something to consider if you are sitting there and you're thinking that you're in pretty good shape because years ago you invested in target date mutual funds and just fired and forgot, right? And those funds are continuing to do what they said they would do. They're not doing anything wrong, but they may not be functioning as they were designed to do when they were first put into practice.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So if I have one of these, I may not even know I have one of these, right?
It's possible. That's right.
It is. Yeah. I mean, if your listeners are like me, I just don't look at this stuff very often, John. I set it up once and it just goes. And so it's probably a good thing. I presume that if I look at my statement, it's not going to say target date mutual fund. It's going to have some funky name that I don't understand. So I need to call you, right? Call John and say, here's what I got. It might still be okay for me is what I'm trying to say. It might still be okay. I might be on target. Odds are I might be off target. I might be out of the bullseye because a lot of things have changed since those things got set up. Not That's just right. Market conditions, but I mean, just lots of things have changed. Mm-hmm. So, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And actually in many cases, they are right on your statement. But so many people don't really look at those statements, or if they do, they look at the bottom line number and say, oh, it's growing. That's good. We're done. Toss it in the trash or put it in the file or whatever. But they actually often do say target date mutual fund or, whatever the name of the company is, target date mutual fund 2033 or whatever year it was that was chosen for you or you chose.
Okay.
But you're right. A lot of people don't realize that they haven't because it's those people who maybe didn't make the election. Right. So the company made it for them.
Right.
And they ended up with these things and they don't even know they have them. It's certainly better than not saving anything at all.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So not be on target.
Right. I was going to say, don't hear us say these are bad things. It's just part of a portfolio, right? And it's all that John talks about. How are you going to build a life, not just a portfolio, because that's not what it's about. It's the portfolio that helps you run your life and live your life and plan your life. So you may have one of these and it might be close. It might need tweaking. It might need changed. It might not need anything at all is what I'm hearing. I mean, it's just because you have one it just is. That's now right. Let's see how that target date mutual fund plays. How is it performing? Because you were talking about the different ways of things, and how's it performing in relation to your specific portfolio? Because that's the real.
And your goals.
Yeah, because that's the real answer. And that's why we say it all the time, this thing, you're not giving financial advice on this thing because you
Right.
can't, because you don't know their goals and their plans and all of that. That's why people need to reach out and just have that conversation with you and begin a dialogue to go, okay, here's where we are and here's what we have. And you can sift and sort through all of the paperwork and things, and probably in half the time figure things out, because it gets complex. At least it does for me.
Yeah,
I just want
it's
to
something we do every day. We look at that paperwork, and we can determine things in half the time. It's kind of like when you take your car to the mechanic, and you've been looking at it for hours, and he looks at it for 5 minutes, says, "Oh, here's your problem right here."
Yeah, and you're like,
He does it every day.
Yeah, yeah.
And he likes it.
There's $500. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, so target date mutual funds, I now know what those are. I can now have a conversation with somebody at a party and get myself in big trouble. But I know that they're not good or bad. They just are. And they need to be, if you have one, it just needs to be part of your portfolio. And that portfolio is all about what life are you trying to build? How are you living your life today? What do you want to live in the future? How does this fit? And there are lots of other very, dynamic and sometimes complex aspects to it that John and his team can help you just walk through, figure out, so that you can build a great life that's supported and funded by a well-balanced portfolio. I don't know if that's the right phrase.
Well-designed, well-balanced portfolio. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's the whole thing. So guardianrockwealth.com, you can go there and find John's information, request a copy of his book, schedule a call with him, a Zoom call or a phone call, and just have some dialogue around things like this. Because I guess the thing that hit me today, John, as we were talking, I came into this conversation not really understanding what a target date mutual fund is. And then the light bulb came in and said, I wonder how many other things there are out there that I don't know what they are, but you do, because you do this all day, every day. And so many times we hear the media and we think, oh, I know what I need to do, right? I've got a Bible study with 2 doctors in it, and they're like, yeah, people come into my office saying, okay, doc, here's what I have. I've been to WebMD. Here's what I have. Here's the prescription I need. Right. Please fill it. And they're like, yeah, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I went to school for 10 plus years to learn how to diagnose.
Yes.
WebMD has not figured that out yet.
They haven't, but I'm sure you probably hit that every once in a while. Somebody says, you know what, John, I've been all over, I've been watching. Here's what I want to do, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, time out. What are your goals? How does that fit? Because you're not an eTrade.com. You're somebody who puts together something. Nothing wrong with eTrade, but you've got to sit down with somebody who will talk with you and know you and help you figure out your goals and what are you trying to accomplish to build that portfolio that's going to support your life. And that's what it's all about. So just let me encourage you, reach out to John Browning, guardianrockwealth.com, schedule a call with him and begin that dialogue with him so that he can help you build a life, not a portfolio, to make sure that you are going to not only be on target, but you're going to hit the bullseye when it's time for you to return. How about that?
Sounds good.
All right. John Browning, thank you so much for another great episode and enlightening my eyes and helping me learn a little bit more. That's what you're so good at. Thank you, sir.
Great. Good to see you again.
Okay.
All right.